Hey folks, Matt Sharp here with another Pacific Angler Friday Fishing Report. We're filming for July 24th, so if it's nowhere near July 24th, click up here. This is a link to all the Friday Fishing Reports. We do it every week, so we'll have something more up to date for you. This week, on the politics front, I'm going to get that out of the way. It looks like some politicians are starting to talk about the mismanagement of the fishery. I want to shout out to Representative Tim Zimmer, who had some good words, short words, didn't ramble on too much, but he hit the nail on the head in Parliament this last week. I'm gonna have links down below to that because it's worth checking out. Also, if you missed it, there was a petition in last week's blog. I'm gonna leave links to that as well because we want to get as many names on that as possible. On the fishing front, that's what we're all here for. I've got an update on the coho fishing. It's picking up. We're hitting some cool reports of guys playing with small flashers, mini flashers, dogtails, and hoochies, getting them closer to home than they were. We're also hearing better reports a little farther out. I'm gonna walk you guys through where the guys have been getting them. We're also gonna talk about the Chinook fishing because guys have been running across the strait and definitely finding fish. It hasn't been hot, but it's been pretty darn consistent if you can dial it in, and I'll have reports on where you wanna look for that under 80 centimeter retention area across the strait. Now, on the freshwater side of things, I just got back from a trip, which was brilliant. I'm gonna have an update there, some observations of warmer water lake fishing that was pretty darn successful, but had some, let's say, puzzle solving involved in it. I'm gonna walk you through what we saw on the weekend because it might apply to a trip that you're heading out if you're going lake fishing in the next little bit. I'm gonna touch base on the Skagit as well. She's coming down. She's almost at last year's opening day levels. We're gonna touch base on the Thompson because I drove over it as well. I've got information on the Vedder as well as the Capilano in the blog version of the report. And last but not least, I promised some flies this week. I've got a fly from Jordan and a fly from Andre. Beach patterns, some cool stuff. Andre's got a Chinook pattern from the beach, so still small and shrimpy, but a really cool one if you're going to try to catch a Chinook from the beach. And then Jordan's got a classic with a little bit of a tweak when it comes to beach patterns. So you'll want to check that out if you're hitting the beaches or just want to load up the box as the season progresses. That's one that's definitely worth looking at. As always, guys, you want to see more reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into her. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in with me this week. Let's jump right into the weather because it looks like another good weekend. It was nice to finally see some summer weather this week, and I think it's going to continue. When we're looking at Vancouver, it's looking at like 20s, 21, 24. Looks like there might be a little bit of rain. Full disclosure, I'm filming Thursday morning, so I'm not drinking beer, drinking coffee, but it looks as though she should be nice. Not scorching hot, but definitely good to get out there. When we roll it out to Kamloops, and this is where I was last weekend, it's a little bit warmer. We're gonna see probably the first good 30s, 32s rolling into Sunday, Monday. A little bit of rain, a little bit of thunder, a little bit of mixed weather on Friday if you guys are heading out, but it looks solid. So it definitely looks like it's going in the right direction. And hopefully it's gonna be dropping some river levels down a little bit faster than we were seeing previously, but at the same time, not scorching too many of the lakes. Now, when we look at the saltwater, the Strait of Georgia is also looking pretty decent with 5 to 15 knots Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We'll see where that goes. Obviously check your weather before you go out, but it looks promising. The tides also look promising. So when we peek at those, they're fairly big swings, but the high slack is early in the morning, but fishable early morning, meaning like we're seeing 8, 9, 10, right into noon come Monday. But that should be good to catch that morning fish and definitely worth looking at. Afternoon fishes should be good too, sort of the 3 o'clock range. There's gonna be a low slack down there, a little bit bigger tide to push you around, but definitely worth getting out. Now, on that saltwater front, we wanna talk about that. I've been hearing better coho report. We've heard reports from the Pink Apartment and the North Shoreline pushing out to Roger Curtis and Gower Point. So guys are finding them. We expect the harbor to get better as the season progresses, as long as it stays relatively warm with not a lot of rain to suck those fish up the Capilano if they open up the dam. Beach fishermen are also doing well. We're going to talk about that when we get into the fly section because I got some cool beach flies for you guys who are fly fishing. But for the saltwater guys, it's a go time and definitely hatchery coho to be had out there. Now for the team running across the strait looking for those 80 centimeter Chinook and under, 62 to 80, that's the slot limit out there. Anything sort of up to Nanaimo has been fishing well. Basically, we'll say Thrasher Rock and up when you're in that area that is open. Check your regulations before you go so you know exactly where those lines are. but we've been hearing good reports. We had friends over there today as I'm filming. They hooked sort of 4 to 8 fish on a tide, which was excellent. You had to work for them. It hasn't been easy, but it has been consistent. Definitely worth a trip if you want to get one of those fish for the dinner table. Now, rolling it into the lake fishing I did this weekend, I want to share this with you guys. I was out at my buddy's birthday. He rented out an entire lodge for his best friends, and we had a blast. I will admit there was a lot of partying going on, not all fishing, but we did put in a really good session on Saturday. We were staying at a really cool lodge called Squamish Lodge, located in the northern Bonaparte Plateau. And even if you guys aren't going there, it's a good gauge. It's sort of in the 4,500-foot level, and water temperatures were sort of 61, 62, 64 in there. And we found that there were some smaller fish working the shoals in shallow. Occasionally a larger fish would move into those shallows to eat emerging damsels and emerging mayflies, but most of the fish were feeding on shrimp, and that can be challenging. But we were fishing shrimp under an indicator, relatively small ones. You can see here in the stomach pump, they're painfully small, mixed with a bunch of Daphnia. But because that wasn't as productive, we were sort of picking up a fish every 45 minutes to an hour doing that. Started wind drifting with more meat style patterns. Now, funnily enough, the leeches weren't doing it for us. The dragonflies were what we're keying in. Now, this is different on every given lake, but you might start thinking that we're fishing type 6 and type 3 sinking lines, letting it sink with classic gompfish style patterns. And it was really productive. We went from hooking maybe a fish an hour all the way up to maybe 3 or 4 fish every drift down a very sort of 100 to 150 yard length, and then trolling back up, hooking a couple in there, drifting back down. So one you might want to consider if you're searching for fish. They seem to be holding in that 20 to 25 foot depth range, which makes sense with that water temperature. Now, what I also saw on that trip was I got to drive by a bunch of the rivers. The Vedder is still really high, but we're hearing more positive reports. It seems like there's some fish pushing through there. There's some politics there on the net front. If you want to get educated on that, Google search that. I'm not going to get into that too far, but there are fish to be had if you want to float fish the Vedder, but it is very high. I went over the Thompson as well, and it is still bank to bank. Very, very big water, so you may want to drag your heels if you were planning a trout trip in the next 10 days, but she should be soon. I'm expecting sort of first to second week of August, we should see some good trout levels if you want to fish the Thompson. The Skagit is also coming along. Let's take a look at the water levels on her, because she's close to where she was last year on opening day. So we pull it up here, and I'll just correlate for you guys. It was sitting at a 5.6 opening day July last year, and it's sitting just a touch above that, maybe in that same realm today as we're filming. So I would give it probably another 2 weeks before it's at a nice fishable level. But if you guys remember opening day last year, it was high, but you could cross it in limited spots, and the fishing was pretty decent, even if the access was still quite limited. So if you're gonna only have one trip this year, I'd still probably drag your feet, but you should be able to start seeing hikeable riverbanks and crossable areas. Be careful when you're crossing always, but it should be good to go for the next little bit if you're planning a trip. So on the fly front, I wanted to share some cool flies with you. Sorry I've been neglecting that front. It's just been very busy. Jordan's got a fly for us this week, and so does Andre, and they're both focusing in on beach fishing because it's coming that time of year. Now, Andre has a really cool one. He shared a Chinook fly with us, which is something he sometimes keeps close to his pocket, so to say. But he's got his Chinook Charmer. It's a very cool sort of mix of an arrow style pattern, the style that he usually fishes in the rivers, built just a touch larger, but a really cool one that you want to check out. I'm going to leave links up here to that one, and if you're beach fishing this year, it's definitely one to put in the arsenal. On the same line, Jordan has a classic, and that is the California Neal. Out of all the beach patterns, you go back when it comes to sort of euphausid style patterns, shrimp style patterns, which are very commonly used for beach coho, quite small. The California Neal was one of the first. I remember days in Tofino when I was probably 20 years old, where the California Neal would outfish anything you threw in the water. Very simple pattern, great river pattern too in certain areas, but Jordan's got a tweak to it that he's been using over the last little bit to add a hothead to it. And I really like this idea, add something, a little bit of jazz to it. And so if you guys want to put that one in your box, it's guaranteed to produce fish anywhere on the coast when you're getting sort of staging coho or coho pushing up on beaches who aren't feeding on bait fish, but are feeding on crab larvae, euphausids, smaller stuff like that. Links up here again if you want to check that one out. Definitely worth putting in the box as well. All right, guys, that's everything I've got for you. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next week. And if you want to check out those 2 videos, I'll throw them up here to make life easy for you. And as always, you want to see more reports like this, consider hitting the like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll catch you next week.